Hi, this is Dennis with Second Chance Tackle. Today I'm going to be working on a reel that Marconi brought in. He brought in several reels. He brought in his, which is a Daiwa 7000C, and he brought in a bunch of reels that belong to his friends. These folks are surf fishermen down on the New Jersey shore, and as such, well, the equipment gets wet from time to time. And what I understand right now is this one has been knee-deep in the water or chest-high in the water. And you can tell it turns, but it turns very difficult. This is a Shakespeare reel. This is a about a 7,000 size, 6 or 7,000 size. It's the Ugly Big Water 70. So it is a 70 size reel. And we're going to take this one apart. We're going to show you how the reel is made. We're going to do the service on it. Hopefully we're going to free it up because right now it is quite an effort to turn it. You shouldn't have to do this to bring a fish in. I'm going to start by taking off the exterior pieces and parts. I'll start with the spool up top here. And one of the things I suggest is if you don't know the reel, to go out on the internet and get a schematic of that reel. That schematic will give you a burst diagram of what the internal pieces and parts look like, and that'll help you along the way as you go and service the reel. Right now we can see, yep, it has been used in the surf. There's sand underneath that button. Those buttons don't seal the water out, so we've got all kinds of sand and debris in here. And on that steel 5-sided cap, well, it's rusted. That means water got in there to do that damage. From the inside, it's not terrible. I've seen a lot worse. But again, we're having trouble here. And, well, you're going to see something about the components of the reel as well. So this is a 2-ball bearing reel, and some of the things that you might find is stainless on some, you're going to find is just plain steel on this reel. It's a value-priced reel. So when I remove that click ratchet and that shim washer for the spool height adjuster, well, that allows me to get underneath. Looks like I need a 14 here. And because there's no lip on this, or minimum lip, you can actually get that one with an open-ended wrench. So your schematics are available online. Just do an inquiry. Just put in your search engine, Shakespeare fishing reel schematic, and if you know the piece, in this case it's the Ugly Big Water reel, then you should get results returned to you, and you can go to those sites to get that. So this is a steel clip, and you can see there's rust on that clip as well. One of the things you want to do while you have the bail open, or the rotor off, is just kind of give it a spray with some penetrating oil. Make sure that it trips nice and easy. That penetrating oil will help to loosen it up and trip it. So we're okay there. When I take my pieces and parts off, the small pieces and parts go into a parts tray. The larger pieces that I'm not in jeopardy of losing or misplacing are set to the side. So I'm going to put the rotor on the top end of the reel there. So this is interesting now. With the rotor off, the reel turns much more free. I don't have an explanation for that. This appears to be an always-on anti-reverse. There is a spring that drives it from underneath. We'll show you how that works. This is a little bit confusing to me in that it shouldn't be hard with just the rotor on, unless it was clamped down too much. Okay, we're going to take the handle off. We're going to go inside the case. Take the handle off. Pull the handle out. This is a through handle. If you want to save yourself some anxiety later, take the handle screw, put it back in, that way you won't lose it. Now we have to remove the anti-reverse dog in order to get to the rest of this. So this is an always on. You don't have an override for this, but it is not an instant anti-reverse. It still has the steps from this. Bring the dog up and off. You'll see that there's a slot in the back end of the dog that slot is going to hold the spring that's on here. We'll take this off and show you. You can see the angled spring. That's what's going to pull the dog in and out. With that off, we have 3 screws that are going to hold the bearing in place. I'm just going to get started on this. It's holding the bearing, but it's also holding the pinion gear. So I'm going to take 2 of the 3 out right now. I'm just going to leave that third one until I go inside the case and open up the rest of the reel. So we have 2 exposed screws, and we also have a screw here. We also have one underneath, so we did need to take that rotor off in order to remove this side case. Sometimes the side case is parted or separated below the rim of the rotor cover, so you do not need to remove that rotor first. You should always remove the rotor because you want to get in and do the pinion gear and main bearing service. But sometimes you have to. In this case, it's one of those. So if you had just taken the 3 screws or 4 screws off the bottom, and then we're having trouble separating, it's because that one screw up top there is holding it in. Alright, when I take these off, I like to make sure that they're all the same size. If they're not the same size, I want to note the location. So we'll compare that one that I just took off with these 2. I believe they're the same size. But we'll do that comparison just to make sure. Sometimes the designers and the engineers who build these reels make them a little bit different. Okay, this is a little bit different, I think. Nope, same screw. All right. So the 3 screws, 1, 2, 3, are all the same. Now we have a bump guard. The bump guard is there to protect the reel in case it slams into a pure railing or a wall or something. This would fracture, but not the case. When you remove that, you're going to find there's another screw below here. And the screw below here, again, suggests we've been in the water. There's some rust on it. So we've also learned that this is not stainless steel screws, but rather just plain steel. Okay, this is the 4th screw, and I believe this one is also the same, but I'm going to, well, it's just a little bit shorter. Okay, so that one is an odd one. I've set that aside. Now we can remove the case. And I guess what we're finding out with this reel is it's incredibly dry. And that was kind of my thinking. Oh, the bearing still works here. So there's 2 bearings in this reel. There's 2 bearings and a bushing. And there's a little surface rust on this bearing. It may even translate to rust on the inside. But for the most part, that bearing is working. Now we can remove the other pieces. There's a crosswind block that's holding your axle shaft in place. We'll go through that next. Again, take pictures along the way. Use your camera. Use your cell phone. Hey, do a video if you like. But regardless of what you plan to do, take the pictures. Those pictures could be invaluable in getting you back on track if you've forgotten just what it is that you took off or when you took it off. Again, big parts I'm going to leave outside of my box for now. There's a crosswind block that's got a little bit of dried grease on it. There's a crosswind gear that comes out. Plastic case. So if you're wondering how you save money, that's kind of the ways to do it. Steel screws are less expensive than stainless steel screws. Plastic is cheaper than graphite or metal. All right, in the back here we have a bushing. You can see that's just kind of fallen out. That bushing could be replaced with a bearing to upgrade this if you wanted to. And now we should be able to pull this bearing assembly out. And it's a little tight. I would expect that what's happened here is that the rust on the outside of this bearing has caused it to tighten up a little bit. And if you have a little bit of trouble with that, go over and take the rotor, put the rotor back on without the tie downs, then use the rotor as a knob to kind of help you pull up. Chris and guys have sent me a slide hammer, but I rarely use that. If you keep working it, eventually it will come out. And it's as I suspected. We have a pretty gummed up outside jacket to that bearing. The bearing, surprisingly, is turning okay. I'm going to pull that bearing off. That's an open bearing. I'll oil that. Now we'll just do some parts cleaning here before we go to reassembly. Just do some of these other parts into the parts tray so that I don't lose those. Okay, first thing I want to clean is that pinion gear. I use penetrating oil as a solvent to clean up a lot of the grease. Here's a hard brush. I pull through the channels, and you can see all the dirt that comes out, all the old grease. I want to make sure those channels are clear. Check the teeth, make sure that they're all in good alignment, that they're not bent or chipped or broken or anything. And in this case, we have a little bit of, it feels like debris. It's probably some rust left over from the inner side of that bearing. So we'll just clean that up a little bit. And as soon as I start cleaning parts, it's kind of last off, first on. So if I can clean a part and get it right back onto the reel, I don't have to worry about misplacing that part, and just can move on to the next piece. So this was the first one on. And we've had our top bearing here. Again, I'm going to spin that. A little bit more oil in there. We're fine. I want to clean in the inner side of the case. I can see the rust that was in there. You can see it on the paper towel. And before we start putting things back together again, let's just clean up a little bit of that grease that hasn't evaporated. While I do that, I want to encourage you to ask questions. Maybe you're wondering when these reels were made, how you use them, what kind of rod they would pair up with. Maybe you just want to know about the, we want to clean that outside bearing too if we can. This outside shield is clearly pitted, which is causing that issue. You can actually put a little bit of grease on there maybe to prevent some future pitting. The damage is done there. Okay, let's bring that back in. Center your pinion gear into the hole and then press down to bring that bearing in. And just make sure when you're done that the bearing is nice and flush so that you can put those three hold down screws back on. They use these screws as clamps. They have a wide ridge on them, and a wide ridge catches the outer side of that bearing, holds it in place but does not interfere with your bearing performance. I'm kind of curious why the reel was tight. I can see here in the case itself it might be tight because all the lubrication was gone. And that can happen with salt water. I don't think too much salt water got in there though, but clearly the reel hasn't been serviced in a while, so I'm not sure. All right, clean the crosswind gear. There's no grease anywhere to be found on that one. Some old grease on the inside, but you can see the teeth themselves are totally dry. I use a series of cleaning tools. You can see we've used the hard brush, we've used the cotton swabs, the paper towels. I try to stay away from the abrasive stuff unless it really is necessary. All right, I'm going to come back and take the bushing. Again, this bushing, if you wanted to upgrade this reel, it doesn't take much probably to find the bearing counterpoint to this. So long as the inside diameter, the outside diameter, and the width are the same, you can put a bearing where a bushing is. Or vice versa if you're having trouble with bearings. Why do they do that? Well, plastic bushings are cheaper than bearings, and it all goes into, if you're producing a value-priced reel, ideas save some money here and there. One of them is, as we mentioned before, the steel screws. Another one is the plastic bushings as opposed to bearings. Okay, we're greasing all the teeth. We've checked them just as we checked the pinion gear. They're all in good condition, front and back. I'll set that to the side. This is your oscillation or crosswind gear. This one gets grease everywhere, so you get a little bit on the back because it's going to be spinning back there on that stud. You want to get it on the face because your crosswind block is going to ride there. And get some on the teeth. We've greased the teeth of the main gear, which are going to intersect with that. And now you can see why I wear that glove. It keeps a lot of that grease off my hands. Once you're done with that, bring the block, the gear in, set it on the stud. Make sure that the stud from the other side is down low. That brings us to the crosswind block. I'm going to put some grease into the channel and on the face. That's the only parts that touch anything moving wise. So it can go just like that. Now we'll set the main gear in place. And then we can bring the axle shaft in. We want to remove the screw that we didn't want to lose. We're going to need to wipe this off. And there's a little bit of roughness on there, so I'm going to go to 4-0 steel wool just to clean up some of that rust and debris that's on there. The smoother you can get it now, the better it'll be sliding in and out of your pinion gears center. Just a light coating of grease. Bring that down, find the flat side that's going to face you. Hold the crosswind block so it doesn't move. Bring it in, merge it. And you'll know you're in when the hole in the crosswind block and the hole in the axle shaft align. And you can take the tie-down screw, bring that in. And then all we need to do then is put the side case on. We put another little squirt of oil on this. I can squirt the oil in on the other side as well. We can bring the case over and on. Make sure you get a nice tight snap. That's what I was waiting for. The seams should be nice and tight all the way around. Well, we said the 3 up top are interchangeable, so we can put those in any position. If you noticed that one of these was different than the others, like the one that goes underneath the bump guard, then you need to put them back in the place separate from the others. Every now and then I get a question about using a mechanical screwdriver to put these screws in. It does take a lot of effort. I would say if you want to go do that, go ahead and do that. But don't tighten it down all the way, particularly in a case like this, which is plastic. Those mechanical screwdrivers have a lot of torque. You can over tighten, you can actually split a case like this. So be careful as you're putting them back in, but if you do have a need for them, just leave it short and then make the last turn or two by hand. What do I mean by short? Like this. Just take your mechanical screwdriver to about here where there's a little bit of space, And when you need 2 more turns or so, you can finish that off by hand. The smaller screw goes here. And then we can put that bump guard back on. I'll show you how to set that top up again. Before you go crazy, turn this thing. Make sure it turns nice and easy, which it does. Then we can take our bump guard and bring that over. There's a little tag on this end here, and there's a hole over here. Make sure that that tag sits in the hole so you have a nice clean closure there. That's how you know you have a steel screw. It's a magnetic tip. So stainless steels are not magnetic, but steel is. Okay, I want to bring our arm over now. This is the click ratchet, and you want to move this. I think we have to actually locate it in there. And find the slot here. Make sure that that spring that I just showed you, I can see it here, you might not be able to, it goes in that slot. And then we grab that big screw for this. And tighten this down. And you can test now. You can turn it this way, it should be able to drive. And when you go to back it up, it should pull in to stop the reel. So we're in stop mode right now. Next up then is our rotor. Again, there was dirt and debris under there, you clean it off. Alright, that's turning a lot smoother right now, so I'm still curious why it was binding. And when we took it off, it wasn't. This might have been over tightened, I don't know. Or it may just be that all of that stuff that we had in there that was rust related caused the issue. Okay, once you finish tightening down the nut, let's get the retainer screw. That'll keep the nut from spinning. And we can bring our click ratchet over and our spool height adjuster over. And while we're at it, we can put the handle back in as well. If you're doing this for somebody else, always note what side the handle was mounted on. These are interchangeable handles, so they can go on the right or the left-hand side crank. This one came in with the left-hand side crank. All right, and before we finish this reel off, we want to do the spool. As I mentioned, we do have the rusting going on inside the clip ring here, so let's take the retention ring out. And let's see what we have under here. Well, we have felt washers that have never been serviced. So here's the problem with felt washers. As you can see here, they stick. They also become very brittle, and they can tear. So you want to make sure that you keep these well oiled and service them regularly. Oil will keep them fresh, and that will relieve any stress in that reel or in that washer relative to being premature wear. All right, put them right in as they are. I'm just going to use my oiler. I'm just going to get a good pile of oil all over that thing. Just like that. Wet it down real good. You have two of the washers that have rectangular inserts to them. Those go high and low. They're called keyed washers. I'm going to do this 3 times. We're going to soak this one down. These are very porous, so you can do that. The middle one has a circle center and 2 tabs. That's called an eared washer. And we'll go up high with the last one. And then we'll bring the piece over. And then our retention clip goes in the slot inside the spool. Make sure that the clip is set all the way in. We're good with that. We're going to load the spool on. Bring the drag adjuster in. And we can give it a final test. Boy, that turns a lot more free and easy than it did for sure, right? Check our bail, make sure it's firing, which it is. This one's ready to go back out on the water. Well, I hope you've enjoyed that. This is your Shakespeare Ugly 70, and it's a big water 70 reel, and it's ready to go fishing again. Before I leave, I want to thank our first responders and essential personnel. I want to thank everybody who's dedicated their careers to public safety, police, fire, safety, rescue, EMTs, ER workers, you know who you are. Right now I'm just going to find another one. I notice that this spool is coning, which means that the line is gathering high rather than low. That's because it needs another shim washer. I'll probably have to hunt around for that. I thought that the one I had here would work. It's not the right sized one. Now and then I keep a few of these on my desk just in case. I'm going to have to find it to raise that up. You add the additional washer. That'll fix that situation, and then we can return it. Well, again, I want to thank everybody for watching and for your attention. I hope I make the channel what it is. Just found one. How do you like that? All right. Very good. All right. I want to wish everybody great times on the water, fun fishing, and well, the enjoyment of fishing reel service and repair, if that's what you're using these for. This is Dennis with Second Chance Tackle. Have a great day.